Setagaya, a peaceful suburb in the bustling metropolis of Tokyo, is where families thrive. The streets are lined with well kept houses, and the sense of community is strong. Among these homes stood one particular house, nestled in a quiet corner surrounded by trees and silence. It was a home like any other, a place of love, laughs, and the ordinary hustle of daily life. The Miyazawa family had lived in this house for several years. They were well liked by their neighbors. The father, Mikio, was a dedicated worker at an advertising firm. His wife, Yasuko, was a kind hearted teacher known for her gentle nature. They had two children, 8-year-old Nina, a bright and curious girl, and a 6-year-old Ray, who was a bit quieter, more introspective, but adored by his family. They lived a routine life morning breakfast, school runs, and the weekend outings. On the surface, everything seemed perfectly normal. All of this was true till 30th December 2000. It was a cold winter night. The streets were unusually silent as most families were preparing for the New Year's festivities. But in the Miyazawa house, something strange was about to unfold. Something that sent shockwaves across Japan and the world. The next morning seemed off. The house, usually alive with sounds of children, was eerily quiet. Yasuko's mother was trying to contact the family, but no one was answering her calls. She grew concerned and decided to pay them a visit. She approached the door, hesitating for a moment before knocking. There was no answer. The door creaked open with a gentle push, revealing a scene of unsettling silence inside. The air was thick with an uneasy stillness, as if the house itself was holding its breath. And then her harrowing screams echoed down the quiet street. When the police arrived, they were met with a horrifying sight. The entire family had been brutally murdered. They believed the intruder entered the house through the second floor bathroom window, using the park behind the home as cover. Once inside, the intruder's first target was 6-year-old Ray, who was sleeping in his room. Without mercy, the intruder strangled him, perhaps in an attempt to silence him before attacking the rest of the family. What unfolded next was a living nightmare. Mikio, hearing a noise, rushed to confront the intruder. Before he could defend his family, he was stabbed repeatedly with a kitchen knife. The struggle must have been brutal, as Mikio's body was found at the foot of the stairs, covered in deep wounds. But the carnage did not stop there. Yasuko and her daughter Nina, both terrified, were hiding in another room. But they too were not spared. The killer found them and fatally stabbed both mother and daughter. The brutality of the attack was overwhelming. Yasuko and Nina's wounds were far more than those inflicted on Mikio, as though the killer had taken a special, twisted rage out on them. The Miyazawa family was no more. The initial shock quickly turned into a complex investigation. How could something so horrific happen in such a peaceful neighborhood? Who could have done this and why? The deeper the investigators dug, the more questions they found. As the story unfolded, it became clear that this was no ordinary crime. Usually, such cases are solved based on clues and evidence either present at the crime scene or gathered through investigation. But in this particular case, there was no dearth of clues and evidence, as it was found out that the killer did not leave the house immediately. Instead, he lingered. After killing the family, the murderer calmly went about his business as if nothing had happened. He used the family's laptop browsing the internet for a full hour after the killings. He even ate ice cream from their fridge. Bloody handprints were found all over the house, smeared on walls and doors, as though the killer had wandered freely. Investigators believed he stayed inside the Miyazawa home for several hours, perhaps until morning. It was as if he had become part of the household, moving through the space with a chilling familiarity. The police launched one of the biggest investigations in Japanese history. The crime scene, still fresh, yielded countless clues. The killer had left behind a wealth of evidence: his bloody fingerprints, the knife used in the killings, even clothing he had worn during the murders. It seemed like he did not care if anyone found out who he was. Investigators learned that the killer had worn unique clothing: a grey and black sweater, a hip bag, and a scarf. They traced these items back to stores in Japan and South Korea, but none of the leads brought them closer to identifying the killer. His DNA was found at the scene, both blood and skin cells, but shockingly, it did not match anyone in the Japanese database. Even more bizarre, the DNA suggested the killer was of mixed race, half European, half East Asian. This was a strange and rare profile in Japan, and it led to wild speculation about the killer's origins. As the investigation continued, police learned that the neighbors saw some strange activity in the days leading up to the murders. They reported seeing a man loitering around the park behind the Miyazawa home, but no one thought of calling the police. After this, thousands of tips were followed, thousands of DNA samples were taken, but the killer remained elusive, like a phantom who had vanished into thin air. The most puzzling aspect of the Setagaya murders is the killer's behavior. Why stay in the house for hours after committing such a brutal act? Why leave behind so much evidence? Theories range from the killer being mentally unstable to deliberately taunting the police, confident they would never catch him. The evidence points towards a mixture of carelessness and calculation, a strange, terrifying combination. To this day, the mystery of what truly happened in the Miyazawa home remains unsolved. The case has haunted investigators, leaving behind more questions than answers. How could such a brutal act occur in a place where people felt so safe? Who was the person that slipped into the Miyazawa home that night, and why did he commit such a heinous crime? The house in Setagaya still stands, a silent witness to the tragedy that befell on the people who lived there. While the answers remain hidden, the memory of the Miyazawa family lives on, their story an enduring mystery in the heart of Setagaya.